Hi Sunday Club, it's Susan again. Long time since I've done anything with you guys. I hope you're all happy to be back at school and that you're enjoying this nicer weather. It's been at least a wee bit warmer. I have a special guest for us today, and this is somebody from church, and she's going to come and talk to us about somewhere she's been. I think she's been there maybe more than once, but we'll ask her that when we speak to her. So I have a flag to show you, see if you can work out what country it is. I have a map to show you to see if that'll help you. And then we will introduce you to our guest speaker today. Well, Sunday Club, here we have our special guest, is June. Say hello, June.
Hi.
And this is the flag. And before we tell you what country it is, we will move on. And this is the map of the continent. June wants to give you a clue.
Yeah, you're looking for a pinky country.
So there's a few there to choose from. I'm sure some of you will have probably already guessed what one it is. Okay then, June, what country are we in?
We're in Ethiopia.
And June's going to tell us a little bit about when she was in Ethiopia. And have you been there more than once?
I've been twice. Both times I went with a Christian charity called Send a Cow. I used to give talks on behalf of Send a Cow in this country, and I got to go on 2 what they called study tours, which meant we went and looked at the projects that that they were working on with groups of people.
Okay, that's good. Now June's got quite a lot of photographs for us to see, so I think I'm going to let June go through. I think she says she's going to set me some tester questions, and I'm sure you'll be able to answer them probably better than me. So here we'll go for it. So what is this then, June?
This is a church in a town in a rural area, because Send a Cow works in rural areas, and this is a town called Chencha, and it's not a very big, well, it's not a particularly big church, and it's quite simple. And the reason I'm showing this church is it belongs to the Kalhiwet Church, it's called, which is a big church in Ethiopia, which has very much has a concern for the poor, and which is also a concern of Ethiopia's Send a Cow in Ethiopia. So we work with them on the projects, so they get involved. So the church is involved from the beginning.
Okay, and I think there's another picture of a church, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of their churches in the city. In a city called Sodo. So
what kind of services do they have?
Well, we did go to a service in this particular church one Sunday, and we went about 8:30 in the morning, and they were already singing, had been for ages, and then they continued singing for another long time, and then somebody spoke, all in Amharic, which is the language.
Okay.
That most people will understand, and then they were more singing. We left about 10:30, and they were still going. So there was about
10:30 in the evening.
No, in the morning.
Oh, in the morning. Okay.
There was.
Oh, you were at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it would hold nearly, well over 1,000 people, I think, in the room we were in, and then there was a meeting for children in a room just as big. So I don't know how many children were there. We didn't see that. Oh. But it was lovely, because although we couldn't understand a word, there was a wonderful atmosphere.
Press the wrong button.
No, that's okay. So these are, when Send a Cow works with a group, it works with a group of poor people. It doesn't give them money. It gives them training in various things, including looking after various animals, and they will give animals too. So tell me what we're looking at, Susan. Starting top left.
Chickens.
Yeah.
Looks like donkeys.
Yeah.
That I'm assuming is honey. Is it bees?
Yeah.
Then goats. Oh, now we say oxen.
Yeah.
The middle ones. More goats are a different type of goats.
Yeah. What about the one with the 3 in it? On the.
Well, I would have said they were cows, but
Yeah, they are cows.
they're very thin cows.
There aren't 2 lots of goats. One of those lots is sheep, and that's the one at the bottom under the bees.
Got the ones without horns.
Their sheep don't look anything like our sheep.
No, they don't. Oh, well, I hope Sunday Club did better than me, so I didn't get them all right. Oh, right.
Right. So sometimes it isn't appropriate to give a an animal because the person doesn't have much land, so we might give them seeds or fruit trees. So so how you do on this lot?
Well, actually, I was really surprised when you mentioned the kind of food that they eat, because that's cabbage, which I don't grow in my garden because it gets white fly. That looks like plums.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, plums.
Beetroot, which I love. Or is it chard?
No, it's beetroot. They do grow chard as well, but that is beetroot, yeah.
The bottom right looks like carrots.
Yeah.
Onions?
Yeah.
Peppers?
Yeah.
Peppers.
And one of the reasons why a lot of the things we're familiar with is they discovered that most people's diet consisted largely of cabbage and onions and all these and fruit trees, and some of them mangoes and things like that, but they didn't have much variety in their vegetables. So Send a Cow introduced different vegetables to them, and they act like you, they love beetroot out there.
Oh, I love beetroot.
All sorts. They would grow tomatoes, they grow what they call Irish potatoes, which is the potatoes we're used to as well. So it's a way of giving them a better diet, because these are people who are perhaps only eating 1 meal a day. And
okay.
they really are poor. And one of the things that Send a Cow does is if you give them a cow, for instance, which will go to one person in the group will get a cow.
Yep,
they have to learn how to, yeah. In this, that's in the compound there, you can see a cow. What happens is they give them a cow that's in calf. Oh, and when the calf is born, it's called a pass-on system. When it's old enough, if it's a female, then that person who's been given the cow promises to pass on the first female when it's old enough to another poor family.
Oh gosh, that's quite. That's quite
for a lot of the lady at this place where we went, she told us that for her to be able to give something valuable to somebody else was the first time in her life she'd ever been able to do that.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was very, very emotional for her. And this is the sort of house they would live in the rural areas with that thatched roof. Mm-hmm. And then just to the right, you can see another building that's got a tin roof, and that's a new house they were building. And the reason it's got a tin roof is because that doesn't leak, whereas that beautiful thatch leaks. So
okay. I'm just looking at the cactus.
So yes, so that was a sort of compound there, and she will have to, before she can have the cow, she will have to be able to look after it, keep it safe, and grow enough food to feed it.
Mm. And it doesn't look like there's much in the soil there.
Not there, so no. She will be growing food somewhere else that she can feed the cow with. Mm-hmm. And of course, when the calf's born, the cow gives milk, so they've got milk, and they can then sell the surplus. And for children, 1 cup of milk a day prevents malnutrition. So if they've got a cow and they're getting milk to drink, it really changes their lives a lot.
Mm-hmm. So we have another building here.
Yes, well. One of the things they're taught to do is, because they have to go and fetch water. So water is a very precious commodity. And the yellow can you can see there, hanging on the left, mm-hmm. hanging on that wooden structure, that's a tip tap. So they're taught how to build that. They fill that with water, And there's I don't know if you can see, there's a treadle, a wooden stick at the bottom. They press on that and it tips it up. So lets out a small amount of water so they can wash their hands. There's probably some soap there. I think there's a soap dish there. And the reason it's there is because that little building is a toilet.
I had a feeling that might be that what that was. So that's quite a clever idea then, the tip tap, because it saves them wasting water, but using it.
Using it well. They find that they found the biggest difference made to their health was when you got them, explained to them about washing their hands after they've been to the toilet, before they prepared meals, before they ate meals, that sort of thing. And it made a big difference to their health. So that's the
toilet.
That's the toilet, yes.
And the tip tap. I like that. I like the tip tap. That sounds really interesting to me. So this next one is one of my favourite pictures. I love the trough that they've got there.
Yes, well, this is in somebody in a compound. They build these circular gardens, and all their wastewater goes into, you can't see it, but in the middle there's a place where they put things like cabbage leaves and such like. So it's like a compost heap within the garden, and any wastewater goes in there as well. And you can see they've got all sorts of things in there. They've got chard and onions, and they have onions everywhere, cabbage. I think
and it's like broad. I was going to say broad beans, is it? The small ones growing up.
No, that was a leguminous plant that they were using for feeding their animals.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so
no, because I like that. That just looks really nice and full of life.
This garden belonged to a man whose family, he worked for the Callywet Church.
Oh, okay.
And he wanted to become what they call a peer farmer, which is someone who then trains other people. And his idea was, while he was training them, he would tell them about Jesus at the same time. So he got that all worked out. Lovely young man.
A man with a plan.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So the next one, they look very pleased with themselves. Oh.
Yeah, well, if they haven't got a lot of space in their compound, they can grow a lot in a sack.
Yeah. Is that potatoes?
Sorry, no, I don't think that's. Well, it might be, I suppose. Yeah, certainly onions coming out the sides, but grow whatever they want, because we don't tell them what to grow. They grow what they need. You know, they are consulted. We're not saying this is what you have to do. We give them training on things, but and the Send a Cow worker will be with the group for about 3 years, and going once a fortnight to support and encourage them and help them with problems. Okay.
And do they help them with how to irrigate the land, so for the children to water, to set up systems in place that can help you water the plants?
Yes, if in some places where in the Rift Valley where it's very, very dry, if they do well with Send a Cow, then the local government will quite often give them a well, the pump for a well.
Okay.
Otherwise, where these people were, the kids, one lady we visited, her children who were 13 and 14, I think, 2 of them, they had dug a huge hole in the ground until they got down to where the water level was.
Oh, gosh.
And they just had a bit of tin over the top so you didn't fall in it.
Great, yeah.
We work hard. Kids are involved in this as well as the parents. It's not just the parents.
Much more fun than going to school, I'm sure.
And this picture, this family have been working with Send a Cow for about 2 years, and during that time they've really prospered, because you can see all the stuff they've got in the garden. And the grass roof, the tin roof house, they now live in that, and the grass roof hut is where they keep their animals overnight.
Oh gosh.
So you've got so they're on the way up, and within 3 years they can become sufficient in food all year round, which is what we're aiming for. And it means that children can go to school, because a lot of the kids don't go to school because they can't afford it.
Yeah. It looks really green. It's not what I expected.
Well, this part in the south of Ethiopia is more lush than in the far north.
Mm. So what's this building then?
Oh, well, that's the school.
Wow. Is that built-in ventilation along the top and the roof?
Yes, inside it was quite dark. There weren't any children in there when we were there, but that was the school they go to, and loads of children in there. It's not like there's no limit to classes. You could maybe have up to 100 children in a building like that.
Wow.
With a teacher, and
So,
they've got benches. Oh, and this was a young man we met one visit. He'd just come home from school, and you can read what he'd been studying that day. Because
something I was rubbish at. I failed at school at physics.
So did I. But when they go to secondary school, they are taught in English.
Okay.
When they go to primary school, they're taught in Amharic, the national language. And then they will, at home, they will speak their own local language. This is about 90 local languages. So by the time you get to secondary school, you're speaking 3 languages.
Wow. Wow, we dream of that.
We could stand there and have a really good conversation with this young man. He was I think he was 15.
Do you know how he's doing now? Do you ever get any feedback?
I don't know. I don't know now, but he was, yeah, it was really interesting. One place we went, a boy came up to us and he said, "Good afternoon, how are you?" And we just wanted to laugh because we didn't expect this. But he wanted to be a doctor, so anybody who spoke English, he wanted to practice with. So we had quite a long conversation with him as well.
Yeah.
Which was, but to somebody to greet you saying, "Good afternoon, how are you?"
Puts us to shame, doesn't it?
Yes, it does indeed.
So what is that?
Well, that's a football.
Oh gosh, right, okay.
So they have to, because they're out in the country, they haven't got money for things like footballs, so they make that themselves. And that will be odd bits of plastic, which and then it's wrapped around with string. And it was perfectly round.
And now you know why football is the universal sport, because you don't need very much to play the game.
So he'd made his own. He was very proud of it. I asked if we could take a picture, and then gave him a birr, which is a coin, gave him 1 birr, just to, which isn't worth very much at all, but would be a lot to him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely. And so that's just bits of plastic. Where would they get plastic from?
Oh, well, they would have things that when they buy things, they would quite often come in a plastic bag, or any bit of rubbish that would, or even there's a plant called Enset, which is a false banana. It looks like a banana, but it doesn't have bananas. And they would chop that up just to make a middle for it, dry it, and then use it in the middle just to get started, and then then cover it up. They are really clever. You know,
yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
I can't see my kids would ever have sat down and done that.
No. And these very proud looking farmers.
Oh, now the boy in blue, his name's Joshua, and his family didn't actually work with Send a Cow, but the neighbour across the track did. And they had been watching what the neighbour was doing, and so the neighbour helped them. And this garden here is one which he and that's his little brother, that was their responsibility in their family, to look after that garden. So it was up to them to keep it watered and such like. So when he came home from school, that was one of his jobs.
So what's that hanging on it looks like it's drying out?
I was rather hoping you wouldn't ask me that, because
I think tobacco or something, is it?
No, I don't know what that is, but it's obviously something that needs drying and presumably has a value. So
yeah, there's lots of it. Yeah,
there's a lot of it. Yeah.
So we've got.
He's probably got beetroot in there as well. He'll be pleased.
He did have, yes, lots of it.
So these two, the one in the t-shirt his name is Minota, and that's his friend Banga sitting next to him. And we met Minota, and Banga told us about Minota. He said, oh, Minota, he was no good at school. When he left school, he had jobs. He never lasted at any job for any length of time. He was the village loser.
Oh,
you know, he's a nice bloke, quite shy, but he wasn't any good at anything. One thing he did have was a piece of land. So when Send a Cow came to the their community and they formed a group, he was invited to join, and Banga thought, oh, right, here we go again. This is another thing he's going to fail at. But he said that after a few months, he noticed that Minota and Minota's got a wife and 2 small children, was looking healthier. And he said, well, what? He said, are they paying you to do this? He said, no, I'm growing vegetables. And
is this his patch then?
That before it was wasteland, that was what Minota did to it. And with the grass growing down the middle, there was a little stream, there was a spring on his ground.
Oh, goodness
and
me.
he was using it to irrigate. And that's what he'd done in 2 years.
That is amazing, isn't it?
So that just transformed his life.
Yeah.
So Banga was very impressed by this, and he asked if he could join the group.
Oh.
And so Minota, going from being the village loser, was able to share his knowledge and encourage other people. So yeah, so that's quite
pretty impressive stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
is this the family then?
Minota's holding his little boy, and the lady on the end in the white, that's his wife, and that's their little girl next to her. Between them is an elderly lady. She was about 80 in the green dress. She didn't belong to the group, but she saw what Minota was doing. And so she started doing it as well. And actually she gave us, before we left, she gave us a beetroot, and it was the size of a football. Now in this country, you'd think that's going to be woody, but not out there.
Oh, yeah.
But that was a gift to us. And there's Banga and his wife and 2 of his children. He had 3 other children.
And she's got beautiful flowers as well. So do they also grow flowers?
Yeah, I don't know whether they're just ones that you picked, and you know, they might just be wildflowers growing there. But that's outside a new house. I think that's outside Banga's new house. So.
And what's the house made from then?
Well, it's sort of straw and mud, really. They're quite quick to build to a framework, but that one had a tin roof as well.
So that would protect the walls as well then? If the tin hangs over? Yeah.
And quite often, because it's corrugated iron, they might have a gutter and collect the rainwater as well.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, wow. So we have some handsome chaps here?
Oh yes, this was a men's group. A lot of the groups are women or children, but this was a men's group, and we had to walk for 3/4 of an hour in the hot sun up a very steep hillside, and we were exhausted when we got there. But this was a men's group, and there was no road to where they were, but one of the things they were going to do was to start to build a road out, because they found out from the government or from the area government that if they started building from their end, eventually the government would build from the other end and link them up with a road.
Okay.
So they were going to build a road in the direction of a village where there was a clinic, a medical clinic. So they thought that was the sensible thing to do. But it was very high up, and one of the men, I'll tell you the story of.
Is this the next picture, is it?
Hope so, yeah.
Yeah.
His name's Asa, and he was an older man. And he lived even further up the mountain. We were supposed to go and visit his compound, but they realised it was too far for us weak Westerners to get up there. These people told us that no white people had ever visited their community before.
Gosh.
So, but he was married and he had several children, but they were so poor and he couldn't afford to keep them all. So he used to go away to work, and he was very ashamed of the fact that he couldn't support his family. So he'd be away for months at a time and then come back with a little bit of money. But as he got older, things got worse and worse, and he was really desperate. And he went one day, he walked about 12 miles to a hospital, because he knew that you could go to a hospital and sell your blood. They're not like blood donations. So he got there, he bribed the guard to let him in. When he got to the doctor took one look at him and said, "You're too old," and sent him away. And he hadn't got any money left. So he just sat down by the roadside, and somebody who knew him came by and took him to their house and gave him something to eat, and to help him to go home. Anyway, he didn't want to go home, but he went home, but he left home again to try and find more work, until he came across somebody else from their community who said, "Oh, you must come and you should come back." He said, "We got this new thing going, it's really good." So he went back, and this was a Send a Crow group that had been started there with the men. This was this men's group. So he joined, and he was given the overalls he's wearing, and he was given Wellingtons. He was very proud of these.
Yeah.
And he was given seeds, because where he was up the mountain, he couldn't really keep animals. So he started preparing his land and growing vegetables. And they were just coming ready to harvest when one morning he found the whole lot had been ruined, and there was wild pigs had come out of the forest. And they'd eaten the lot.
Yeah, they just dig everything up too.
So undaunted, he set to and he started all over again, and the same thing happened again.
Oh no.
So he was in tears by this time, and he went to the Send a Cow worker, and he said, what can I do? Because it wasn't really practical to fence his land to keep strong enough to keep the pigs out. So they said, "Well, let's pray about it." So he said, so we prayed about it, and he said, and since we've prayed, the pigs have never been back. So he's been able to grow.
Gosh.
And that was he was desperate to tell us this story about how faithful God had been to him.
Yeah.
And quite remarkable. But it meant he could live at home and be with his children. His children could go to school, because he's got children over a wide age. He's got about 6, but they were well spaced out. So that was
yeah, it's an amazing story. Did you find that most of them are Christians?
When Send a Cow works, they work in 5 other countries in Africa, but it's based on need, not on religion. But we did meet some groups who were Muslim.
Okay.
But a lot of them were Christians.
So even in the remote villages, do they have an understanding of Christianity, or are they quite strong in their belief? Or
I think so. I think when you're that desperately poor and God does something for you, you have a really strong belief in him, and you know they will turn to him for all sorts of needs. Oh, hang on a minute.
Zoom.
And they do have a very strong, it would be quite a simple faith, but it's very strong, and they really do. Well, they've trusted God for things like keeping the pigs away. If God can do that for you, well, why wouldn't you want to trust him and look for more? They wouldn't have church services like we do, because they were so remote. So part of what Send a Cow would be encouraging, and why they work with churches, is someone from the church would go, a church would go there and nurture their faith and read the Bible with them. In his pocket, you can see he's got a blue thing sticking out. That's his savings book. And one of the things they do as a group is they save money, and they might only save 1 or 2 birr a week, but a birr is worth the equivalent of 3 pence.
Okay.
And they might only be earning about 12 birr. So they're saving quite a lot, but they've learnt, because if they save money, then they can borrow from the group. Say he wanted to buy a goat, he will be able to go and borrow them, because he's paid into it. He will be allowed to have a loan from the group, and then
Yeah.
he would pay that back.
Yeah, it's a
So
great
it's
scheme, isn't it?
Yeah, so
Mhm.
it's helping. Send a Cow wants to help people to help themselves, because
Yeah.
they're not stupid. They might be poor,
Mhm.
but when you're not getting enough to eat, you know, your brain doesn't work very well.
Yes. Mhm.
And so they just need help to get going. But it's like winding up a clockwork toy. Once you wind them up, you know, they're off. They're very
Yeah. Mhm.
very creative.
Well,
We
that
met.
farm, that land you showed, the farmland, that
Yeah,
was amazing to see, just
yeah,
rows and rows and rows of plants,
yeah,
and all
yeah,
edible.
yeah.
The
So
next
it's
one I really like this, and I
we
think we should all live by this.
yeah one place we went on a on a Sunday. We were having lunch with all this amazing food, with including about 5 different variations of beetroot. You'll be interested to hear. And somebody had written this out in English for us, and they'd pinned it to a tree over the table where we were eating outside. I tell you the truth, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me. And that was really moving to see that there. And that was them thanking us, because giving talks for Send a Cow, you know, we raise money, and that enables them to do their work. So that was that was really good. So even the smallest thing can make a big difference.
How much would it cost them to buy a packet of seeds?
I don't know. Because one of the things they would do is, one picture I didn't show you was of this carrot plant that had been allowed to run to seed. And there was a little girl standing next to it who was 6, and it was way taller than her. This plant was about as tall as I am, and it was in flower.
Oh, okay.
And so they would collect their own seed.
All right. Okay.
So they might trade seed for seed, go somewhere else, and so I don't know. It wouldn't be very much, but then when you think of it as a proportion of their weekly income, it would be quite a lot.
Yeah, so I was just curious, because a packet of seeds would cost you £2 here, £2.50 for a good quality packet of seeds. So I was just curious to see, in relation to their income, how much a packet of seeds would cost. But if they're growing their own, then it's ideal, isn't it?
Well, that picture where you saw with Minota's transformed land with all that growing there, people, traders from the local town had realized that they got these people growing all these wonderful vegetables. So they would come out and they would buy a proportion of their crops to take back. So they are getting money that way, and that's making a big, and with a cow or with goats, you know, you could sell once you've passed on your first one. That was really important. That's part of the whole ethos, is that they help someone else.
Yeah.
But if the cow has another calf, it's up to you what you do with it.
You
know, you could sell it. So, or some of them just go on, would give away another one because they're so grateful to God for, and they call their cows things like, in their language, like God has blessed me and praise the Lord and all sorts of wonderful things. So God's very much part of their lives.
Gosh.
And it was just an absolute delight to meet them. They were lovely, lovely people.
So when did you go? How long ago was it that you were there?
First time I went was 2009. And the second time I went was 2013.
Oh, so not that long ago then.
Well, I don't know, you see, that's...
Yeah, well, from
from our age,
that's not that long ago. Yeah. So we have our final picture. Would you like to set the scene?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So will I show them it, or do you want to explain first? No. I'm hoping it's the right one now. There you go.
Right. So what I'd like you to think about, and if it's okay with Susan, we'll listen to your answers on the show and tell on Sunday, is why are the chicks pink? Because there's the mother hen and she's got about 8 chicks with her, and they are pink, and they're not naturally pink. So why did somebody go to all the trouble of making the chicks pink?
Can I ask the question just now? How do they colour them?
Well, presumably they have some kind of some red dye, some pink dye.
Oh, do you know what?
And
It's
pick them up.
beetroot.
Yeah.
Let's
So
dip them in
they
beetroot
don't
juice.
paint them. They don't paint them, Susan.
Feed them on beetroot. They might turn pink that way.
No, it wasn't feeding them beetroot.
But anyway, that was brilliant, and it's so up my street with the plants. And because I've done Sunday Club, no, I've done 2 sessions with them, and it's all been about plants and my garden, and so this was a perfect one for me to do. So thank you so much for just showing us a little bit of what you've been up to and what goes on in another part of the world, where I said to you earlier on, my only recollection of Ethiopia and the first time I ever came across it was during Live Aid in 86, I think it was. And you mentioned, when I mentioned Live Aid to you, you had a response to that. Do you remember it?
Yes, yeah. The south of Ethiopia is more fertile and they can grow more there. The north is where there was this dreadful, dreadful famine. And the Ethiopians really don't like their country being remembered for the fact there was famine, because you can see there's so much more to it than that. And yeah, so yes.
So all the mums and dads, they'll know what we're talking about, so they can show their children what went on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was quite interesting for me, because I just, when I think of Ethiopia, I just think of famine and people dying, and I certainly would never think of such lush green gardens. And the little pottage gardens, they're just amazing. I just think they're amazing.
Well, you'll have to get a sack, Susan, and grow some vegetables in it.
I know. But anyway, that's enough of plants. I suppose we should call it a night. And we had a few hiccups getting started, but we got there in the end. And I hope that you've all enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed it. So thank you very much, June. And I'm really glad I asked you.
My pleasure.
So I've got a few more bits and pieces for Sunday Club, and we'll end this with June, and then we'll do some of the other stuff afterwards. So thanks once again, June. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. So, hi. So now that we've had June's stories, and I found them absolutely fascinating, I didn't expect Ethiopia to be quite as green or as lush, and to be able to grow all the vegetables that we know and we eat, and all the fruit. Ethiopia is mentioned in the Bible, and there's a story about Philip who meets the Ethiopian. And Philip is a disciple of Jesus who's been given the Holy Spirit. This is around the time after Jesus goes to heaven. Philip is sent to a desert road, and on this desert road he meets a traveling man. So he's in a very posh traveling chariot which has seats in it, and he is actually quite an important person. He's treasurer to the Queen of Ethiopia, and he meets Philip, and they have a little tale to tell. It's quite a long reading, and I think we've been on quite a long time now, so I think it might be better if you've got a moment, if you sit down with somebody and maybe do the reading. There's a couple of really good, easy to watch links on YouTube, and they're cartoony type, and they tell the story really well. So I've got a craft for you to do next, and so I will leave you to the reading, and then we'll get on to the craft.
Okay, so when I looked up for our craft, I looked up to see what they suggested the Ethiopian craft was, and it came up with that a lot of their craft work is based on geometric patterns, and geometric patterns would be the repetition of a shape generally, and then how that all matches in with other shapes and other things. Either, I can't even think of the word, but never mind. They suggested that they would use vegetables for their shapes. So I have cut a diamond out of my potato, which I think you can just about see. Oh, there we go. and I have cut an orange into a square shape. I have no idea how this one's going to work out. And I have cut a triangle out of another potato. So what I'm going to try and do, and I'm not very sure about the angle here on the film, but I've got yellow card, so I'm not even sure whether these colours are going to show up. I raided my daughter's art box again. She's not in the country, so she won't know. And I'm going to try and just do a row of triangles and see what happens. I think the secret is not to put too much on at a time, and to just, so there we go, that's our first. My light's not very good for this. So there was our first triangles. And then what they would maybe do is then maybe put, I can't really see what I'm doing on this because the colours are rubbish. Maybe I'll try a different colour. I'll try a darker colour. I think this one's not got, this one dried out completely. Try this one. This is a sort of grey colour. This might show up better. These are just tester pots that she had lying in her box. So we'll try, see if I put the grey on top of the peachy colour here. I think what I might do is I might do this triangle upside down this time on this one. Ooh, that just came out like a straight line. That wasn't very good. It's not as easy as you think. Now that's very strange because coming down the way, it's coming down, it's coming out as a line. It must be the way I'm pressing on it. Too much paint on that one. Oh, that's better. So when it sticks and pops, then it's got a better feel to it. So we'll try a diamond. And that was our 2 rows of triangles, and then we'll try a diamond and see what happens here. Now these patterns would be painted on paper or canvas, if they had canvas, or maybe even fabric. No, doesn't like this paint very well, I don't think. So I saw the amazing artwork that you all produced for Yanni from South Africa and all the animals. I'm wondering whether you could maybe produce some geometric patterned artwork to let me see, or maybe if you wanted to, I'm going to get into trouble now, print a t-shirt. So you could print a t-shirt with the same idea. I'll see if this orange takes. I have no idea. I've never painted an orange before. I've done potatoes before many times, but I've never done an orange. I'm hoping you might get to see some of the lines actually from an orange. It just goes a bit of a watery mess. I think I maybe have to let the orange dry out first. That didn't work very well. So I think maybe if you cut an orange up and let it dry, that might be better actually. Or maybe don't put quite so much paint on it, and you get some nice patterns from the orange. So I'm looking forward to seeing your artwork. I'm hoping your mum and dad's, or your mums or your dads or your grannies or your grandpas or whoever's doing it with you, I'm hoping they don't get too cross with the mess. But that was the orange. It didn't come out very well because I think it was just a wee bit too watery. I think in the drier ones you can see better what's happened. And that was the diamonds, and the triangles were a disaster to begin with because the paint didn't take very well. So see how you get on. I'm looking forward to seeing your artwork. And don't forget, you've got to tell June on Sunday, if you remember, why are the chickens painted, well, painted, I don't know, are they painted? Why are the chickens coloured pink? So that's it from Ethiopia. I hope you've enjoyed it. June's been amazing. I I know it was really long, but it was actually quite interesting, and she'd sent me all the pictures and for the PowerPoint. So I've really enjoyed it, and I've learned a lot, and I hope you've learned from it as well. And I'll see you all on Sunday. Bye.